So a few years ago, I was at Pinball Expo hearing the beginnings of a really great seminar about the scene in New York City and the modern day version of the pinball scene in New York City. And partway through it, some wise guy in the audience started asking questions, and he just wouldn't stop. And we never did get to hear the rest of what Chris had to say, but we'll talk more about that wise guy later on. So for right now, here's the leader of Pinball NYC to update us on a few additional years of what's going on in New York City, the anatomy of a pinball resurgence. Chris Medina.
They were nice enough to bring me a stool. Relax. There we go. There we go. Okay. I'm not going to lie, folks. I remember my memory of this presentation I did at Expo in 2015 was just tragically crushed when I looked it up recently and replayed the audio. And I'm like, oh, my God, that was terrible. That was me? I can't be that bad again. So we went back to the drawing board. I'm going to read to try to cut out a lot of the ums and ahs and awkward pauses that were back in the day, and I do require my glasses. So what am I speaking of today? It is not, there's been some a little bit of a haziness about what I'm trying to talk about today. It is not about specifically what's going on in the city right now, and people are playing pinball, and there's a lot out there and all that, and we'll get to some of that. But it's really, what interests me more is how did we get to where we are now? And so without further ado, New York City, the anatomy of a pinball resurgence, as I tell it. Okay, as I stand before you today, I think we can all agree that our beloved game of pinball has arisen from the dark ages of the early aughts and is once again flourishing. The turn of the century saw the close of the Williams Pinball Division, leaving Stern alone at the helm of what seemed to be a sinking ship. Pinball had fallen hard from pop culture prominence to subculture obscurity, kept alive only by a small community of diehard hobbyists. And yet, here we are today in a new era of pinball prosperity. There are now more pinball manufacturers globally than perhaps at any one time in the game's history. Where once there was only Expo in Chicago, pinball conventions like this one are now taking place all over the country. Pinball barcades and museums are popping up all over the place. Pinball is once again cool and has reclaimed its rightful status in popular culture. So how did we get here? Well, of course, that answer is rather complicated, but I'd like to offer some insight by recounting what has transpired in New York City over the past couple of decades. So let's set the scene. In the late 1990s, our buddy, it's not just my buddy, but I think a few of you know our good friend Sam, a pinball fan, grew up in Minnesota, moved to New York City, excited at the prospect of embracing a vibrant pinball scene. However, such a scene did not exist. While Steve Epstein's legendary Broadway arcade was up and running when he arrived, it would have to close its doors permanently in 1997. In fact, this closure was forecast in a 1985 New York Times article, which noted that, quote, a plan for redeveloping Times Square had lumped pinball arcades with pornographic movie theaters and sex-related shops, which planners say would all disappear from the area when the project is completed. Just over a decade later, the forecast would prove true. Without the pinball arcade, New York City public pinball scene was limited to a handful of bars featuring poorly maintained machines. And while Sam had found a small community of people who would meet up for pinball bar crawls, 2000 would be the year these crawls ended. For the next 7 years, pinball would lie dormant, awaiting fresh energy to help it rise again into the city. The new operators, I think, are the first ingredient to come into play here. Despite its decline, We all know that pinball has always had a core following of people who never lost their love of the game. The first step in this city's resurgence would require that a small handful of these people step up and draw the remainder out of dormancy and help spread the gospel. Enter Max. Max was a home collector who would eventually run out of space for his games, so he decided to route them. Unlike the traditional coin operator in New York City at the time, Max was part of the pinball world, and he knew how to play and maintain the machines he put on location. While his reach, easy, Kate, take it easy. All right, let's keep this all in perspective. It was Scott, easy, Scott. All right. While his reach was initially small, the quality of his machines immediately raised the bar in New York City. In an effort to promote his locations, when he then took over an obscure website that tracked New York City's publicly accessible pinball machines. This locator existed long before the now popular pinball map, and it served as the city's guide for the die-hard fans. This is actually a printout. When I would later go on and do research, I printed this stuff out to try to take with me and literally troll the city and visit all these locations. So all that handwritten stuff is basically my notes of what the hell was going on. But this is from the website. All of this is from the website. And you can see in the upper left-hand corner, he's promoting the league that he would eventually do. And in the upper right-hand corner, he sold an ad. Okay. The next person on the block is our beloved Al. Now, Al, good old Al. Now, I could tell Al's story, but honestly, like, I have a recording of Al from the 2015 Expo, which Dave has alluded to, which is he'll do a better job than I do. So here we go. This is Al in 2015. Al, you've got a mic. You want to just tell the story?
3 or 4 locators. There was I was looking at Max's locator and looking for pinball machines to play, and there were less than 70 in the entire New York City greater area, which was kind of sad. And I found a few really nice bars in Williamsburg, a cool beer bar, a very nice like hipster, nice music bar, and a few places that had pinball machines. And I'd go from Manhattan, I'd drive out there at night, so I wasn't working at the time. And you'd go when the left flipper wouldn't work, and it would take months for the operator to fix that left flipper. But I'd still go play every once in a while, and the machines just went down and down and down. So I said, heck, I need my own machine, because I know the only way I'll be able to play a good working machine is to buy one. So I bought a Simpsons Pinball Party, new in the box, December of '05. While I was waiting, the next day, I go to a thrift store, and I'm sharing my exciting news that I'm getting a pinball machine. They're like, really? We got an old one in the back, but I think it needs legs. So the next day, it was a Monday, I'll never forget, and I go, well, what are they going to do with the machine? And they're like, well, come back Friday, because they're not sure if they're going to put it on the internet or whether they're going to sell it. And so I drove Tuesday. I'm not going to wait till Friday. And it's a different manager. I go to the same salesman, and he's like, hey, Myron, who is the manager. He goes, what do we do with the pinball machine? And Myron's like, well, maybe we should sell it before anything happens to it. And so they go, well, how would you pick it up? I go, well, I've got a Mini Cooper. I go, let me drive my Mini Cooper around, and I'll measure the back. As I'm driving around, they're carrying the thing out, off the legs, but not folded down. And I see, wow, really nice condition, top card pinball machine. Gottlieb, wedge head, stand-up targets, 4 kickers, slingshot kickers kind of, and I fold down the back seat and they slide it in, and I couldn't fold the top down, but I'm going 3 blocks. So I drove the 3 blocks, and my super brought the machine upstairs. I called Crazy Levy because I knew there was a guy. I saw a Gottlieb road race, I think it was, at a falafel shop downtown, and there was a business card. So I rode down there, got the business card. The guy came over and cracked open the door. It was a fuse. Put in the new fuse. I had 1 working game. Wound up with The Simpsons, and then my college sweetheart who lives in Montana saw a local ad in the newspaper. 2 pinball machines, $200 each, Comet and Checkpoint. So I had those delivered, and I go to a NASCAR event because now I've got a relationship with the UPS driver because I'm waiting for parts all the time. Maybe I bought a few other games at some auctions or something, like estate sales. And she, I went to a NASCAR event. Not that I'm a NASCAR guy, but I committed, And there's a local, they're handing out the local Sunday newspaper. I see an ad in the classifieds, pinball machine, $1,000. It was a Twilight Zone, a Fishtails, a Funhouse, and a Mario Andretti. I bargained them down to $4,800 for the 4. I went the next day and picked them up, on a Tuesday. And so now I'm starting to mass pinball machines, and one of the owners of one of those original 3 bars knows I have a Funhouse now. And he loves Funhouse. So he goes, look, you bring your Funhouse, and I'll tell this operator to take the game out. Because I forgot what it was, but it was, whatever game it was, it just wasn't working very well. And so the operator didn't like that idea of being replaced. So he came back with a list with 10 machines on it. And I saw Roadshow. I go, well, you like Funhouse? I go, that's its older brother. I go, maybe Carlene Carter's a little annoying, but it's a good game. So he brings Roadshow, and the derrick, or the plow in front of Ted's mouth, would never go up. One of the optos had failed. And so you'd spend your 70 feet, drive out to Brooklyn, spend 75 cents, advance till we can start multi-ball, and it says, shoot Ted's mouth, and the thing's in the way. And so you're like yelling at the machine, I can't shoot Ted's mouth, maybe you need a jump ramp. So another year goes by, and the operator wants me to call him. I'm thinking, well, I'm not gonna go fix the guy's pinball machines, because I had started, learning how to fix that, someone's guidance, an electronics genius freak that I knew. And, but he wanted to know if I wanted to buy his machines. I bought 14 pinball machines for $11,500, including some nice games.
And the route.
No, and then went into all those places and said, hey, look, this guy was a clown. I'd like to take it seriously. And they were all very happy, very fine with that idea. It was a Friday. I gave the guy the money, and there was one of the bars, the beer hall had I forgot what game it was, but it had the left flipper never worked. And it had a gassed out dot matrix display, sorry. But I figured if it was a Friday, I don't have a chance to bring another game until the next week. But if I fix that flipper, maybe a couple people will play it. So I lift up the playfield, and there's a wire dangling right next to the coil. I solder it back on, the flipper works. I'm like, the other operator couldn't do that in 3 months, not once check on the game. And he's pitching his $40 in the coin box, And so from then I took it seriously, and had more people coming up to me. Oh my God, I love pinball. Anytime, they saw me fixing the game or whatever, and I got a bit of a following, and a few other bars called me and helped open up a place called Satellite Lounge. We brought a couple pinball machines there, and people were coming to play pinball, so we kept bringing another and another till we filled the place up with 7 games.
It is at this point, if you have to put yourself in my shoes. In 2015, I'm doing a presentation for the first time ever, and the now delightful rambling of our beloved Al Cihak, I was just shitting my pants. I'm like, we're gonna run out of time. This guy's going on and on, and so it was at that exact point where I'm like, Al, okay, look, we gotta move on. They're gonna throw us out of here. But but honestly, as I listen to it now, my tears start to swell in my eyes. It's really, that was Al, and no, I gotta go. Exactly. And we all caught some of those numbers, right? He bought 2 machines from Montana for $200 each. He bought what Twilight Zone and Fishtails, Funhouse, and Mario Andretti for $4,800 total. He bought 14 machines and a route for $11,500. That's how you start a routing service. That ain't happening now. I ain't anywhere near that now. Anyway, here's a couple more pictures of Al. Look at, and there he is under the hood of one of his machines. Okay. While it would take Al and Max's dominance as operators a while to fully take hold, the seeds were now sown for pinball to grow again in the city. The sudden influx of quality games and the New York City Pinball Locator website were game changers. What was now needed was to get the existing community of fans to emerge from darkness. Enter some regular competitive pinball. First up, after failing miserably in a C Division's final match at Papa in 2007, Max decided to start a league in the city to help him play better competitively. Also, to help him earn coin drop. And in January 2008, Max launched the New York City Pinball League at Amsterdam's Billiards in the East Village. While the first season brought together only 12 like-minded fans, it did manage to lay the groundwork for growth in the community. While Max initially ran the league, he soon turned the reins over to his right-hand man, Bob. Bob's participation in the league was critical. At its peak, he not only attended and managed the New York City Pinball League 3 nights a week, but he also faithfully reported the scores to the IFPA each week, a key ingredient for the participating players. As Max's life did not allow for this level of commitment, it is impossible to overstate Bob's importance in these early years. The year prior to the launch of the New York City Pinball League, a Wall Street employee and resident of the East Village would discover pinball at his local dive bar and soon lay more timber on the fire for this resurgence. John's obsession with the Spider-Man table at Vasic's Horseshoe Bar would ultimately lead him to buy one of his own. Getaway, Diner, and Creature from the Black Lagoon would soon follow. In March 2009, John hosted his first Pinferno competition in his East Village apartment. Partly because of his participation in Max's league, John was able to draw 20 players for his first of these tournaments. As he continued to collect machines, John would ultimately seek out locations to route them. A small skateboard shop in the East Village agreed to take in one of his machines, and soon after, John learned that Reciprocal Skateboards was on the verge of closing. But rather than packing his machine up and walking away, he instead invested in Reciprocal and ultimately brought in more of his machines. Reciprocal would go on to become the host of several Pinferno competitions and serve as the heart of the pinball New York City community for several years. Circa 2004. All right, that's me, by the way. That's me without a beard. And here's a bit of my origin story. So, circa 2004, at a small speakeasy bar in Koreatown, Los Angeles, I rediscovered pinball. A pioneer of the barcade model, Miss T's Barcade was actually an apartment where a young couple shared their coin-op arcade collection, sold cheap beer, and hired a DJ for their twice-weekly parties. A child of the 80s arcade, I was so tickled by the establishment that I had to share the experience with my buddy, Paul. Paul, by the way, is also the guy that got me into craft beer, but that's another story. When he and I finally visited together, he quickly drew me to the 3 pinball machines in the corner that I had completely ignored during my first visit. As a youngster, I was a decent video game player, but I stayed away from the pinball because it swallowed my quarters too quickly. With Paul's guidance and an adult bank account, I quickly got sucked into pinball. It wasn't long before I spent my free time trolling for pinball machines throughout Los Angeles, which meant pretty much going to bowling alleys. That was pretty much it at the time. In 2008, I returned to New York City and my hunt continued. Now, I can't remember my exact reasons why, but I got obsessed with pinball in the late 2000s. Truth be told, at the time I didn't know much about the game, its history, or the community. Nevertheless, I always felt compelled to seek pinball out when I was going out socially, and I felt like a child on Christmas morning whenever I encountered a machine for the first time. I quickly came to believe that this was a game that needed to be championed so that everyone would experience the wide-eyed joy and wonder of pinball that I was then experiencing. It was this thought that led me to create Pinball New York City, which, by the way, is not to be confused with New York City Pinball. As it turns out, I would later learn that you cannot trademark or protect anything with a location name, and Modern Pinball New York City made that mistake. I made that mistake. Max made that mistake. So we all kind of pretty much had the same name. All right. In the summer of 2010, I embarked on creating an organization that would promote all things pinball in New York City. I designed a website that would track locations and machine conditions, list pinball events, and help me promote and manage the citywide team league. The hope was that my background in design and web development would lead to a product that appealed to a wide audience, but both within and out of the established community. So this is the original design, and you can see the ambitious listing of like machine ratings, and it's completely unsustainable. That has to go on to somebody else. So as the current design, we turned everything over to the pinball map, which now it's crowdsourced. I don't have to go and play every machine and rate them. Much more efficient. At the center of my efforts was the Pinball New York City League. I recognized that in order for pinball to flourish again in the city, the locations needed to be making money off the machines. More money would mean more attention would be spent by the operators and establishments, which would lead to a better maintained machines and more locations. Therefore, unlike the New York City Pinball League and Reciprocal's ongoing Pinferno competitions, the Pinball New York City League was built around location pinball. Very much like the well-established New York City Dart League at the time, Pinball New York City is team-based, where each team claims a single bar to call home and plays half their matches at home and half at their opponent's bar. Not only does this model encourage team loyalty to their bar, but the team format can be much more welcoming to new pinball players. In January 2011, we launched with 5 teams in 5 bars with about 25 players. In the middle of that first season, the New York Times did a story on the league, and much more press would follow. I'm sorry, why is that funny? It's okay. I look funny. No, you're laughing at David. David's not funny looking. He's fine. Okay. Oh, yeah. You know who said that was Dwyer. Dwyer was so Dwyer was so stoked about being there that night and being interviewed, and he had all the quotes, and so, yeah, pretty much that's it. Here's a online article for Urban Daddy. There was a few other things. I won't bore you with all that. Anyway, it's important to note that Pinball New York City approach both fed off the success of Max and L, but also fed them in return. Because the league was based on multiple public locations, those multiple locations benefited from the league. In the early days of the league, those teams that played at locations that were not operated by Al or Max would experience problems. So, over time, teams backed away from these locations in favor of those operated by Max or Al. The two of them loved this league as they quickly saw revenue growth. This is a predictable but critical cycle in the business of public pinball machines. When Al and Max arrived on the scene, the doors opened for something bigger, and everyone, from player to operator to bar owner, benefited. So you recognize any faces here? This is early. This is Satellite Lounge. This is early days.
Wait, can you go back for 1 second because I want to take a picture of that picture.
You want to take a picture of a picture? I'll send you the picture.
Send it to Ray.
Oh yeah, that's Ray with his eyes closed, which is kind of funny. Don't play pinball with your eyes closed. There's Don. Look at these guys. Yeah. Joe Said. Look at these guys. There's Al again. One of our early. This was such a stacked team. Francesco stirred things up because he recruited Alberto, just like one of the best players in the world at the time, and then Steve Zoller shows up out of nowhere, and such a stacked team. Of course they won. I don't think Al played a single game that season, but whatever. There's Dahlia. That's at old Fifth Estate, with Jimmy McKenna. That was like a I think it was a split flipper tournament, that we did on the side.
Yeah, it was the first one you did there, and Christian Larson and Kristen Sneddon.
That was later.
Oh, no?
That was later. That wasn't this one. That was later. We did it a few times.
Okay.
Yeah, we did it a few times. Okay. Let's talk about some of these key locations that would spawn after this early start of things. All right, so early in the second decade of the new millennium, the groundwork had been laid for pinball to explode in New York City. The Pinferno competitions and Max and Bob's New York City Pinball League had successfully brought together a foundation of players that would serve as the backbone for the New York City pinball community. The Pinball New York City League grew rapidly and helped introduce more players and locations to the joys of our wonderful game. Max and Al were holding up their end of the bargain by expanding and maintaining quality machines at a growing number of locations. All of this served as groundwork for the opening of several key pinball locations that would further raise the bar and fuel the fire. In 2013, John would leave Reciprocal Skateboards behind and take over Satellite Lounge in Williamsburg. An early hub for pinheads, at its peak, Satellite boasted 7 well-maintained pinball machines. However, with the remodel and John's now expansive collection, that number would eventually double. The newly branded Jack Bar quickly became the premier pinball bar in New York City. This is back in 2013. There's good old Randy. There's Bob again. And no, there is a mirror back there. It doesn't go on forever. There's another shot. Okay. In 2013, also saw the opening of Modern Pinball in Midtown Manhattan. Modern was a collaborative project between veteran arcade owner Steve Epstein and newcomer Steve Zoller. Unlike the bars that housed the majority of the machines in the city, Modern Pinball was a space for all ages. They got enormous love and attention from the pinball community and media alike, and their weekly tournaments drew consistent and solid attendance. I'm getting a lot of top players at the time. And all these pictures, by the way, are courtesy of Philippe Wallach. And he takes good pictures. That's Steve's son. Yeah. All the good photos are Philippe Wallach. All the mediocre photos are me. There we go. Okay, now, I don't know if everyone knows this story, but about 30 years ago, a pinball collector named Peter opened Sunshine Laundromat in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Initially, the business was exactly as the name suggests, a laundromat. Nevertheless, he would usually keep a few pinball machines inside for his patrons to play while waiting for their wash cycles to end. Given the growth of the local pinball community, in 2011, Peter started to slowly crowd his small laundromat with more and more pinball machines from his collection. Do you see what's going on here? Like, you have to walk behind machines. Do you see? Do you see the video game that's in the dryer to the right? That's a video game that you can play in the dryer. Like this is ridiculous. Big Bang Bar, ready to play, and Terminator on top of the washers. Like, this is still just a laundromat, right? This is it's ridiculous, right? And it's all these A-list titles, and he's kind of blowing it up. So then, in 2016, Peter and his partner Mike opened Sunshine Pinball and Laundromat, combining the original business with a speakeasy pinball arcade and bar in the back. What is exceptional about this effort is that, given Peter's ridiculous collection of machines and willingness to put them on location, Sunshine quickly became one of the premier places on the planet to play pinball. With roughly 30 rotating titles that included A-list Williams and Bally titles and super rare machines like Big Bang Bar, Big Lebowski, Supreme, Jersey Jack's Pirates of the Caribbean, not to mention every Stern LE that was released, Sunshine quickly became the city's foremost location to play. That's the back room. There's our beloved. There's Theodore. Hi, Ted. And more. And it was uncomfortably crowded with pinball machines. Like, kind of, there's Boris. We love Boris. Okay. Several other significant locations would open or embrace pinball for the first time during the 2010s. Each of these locations continued to raise the bar for what well-maintained location pinball meant. This, in turn, helped weed out poor operators and maintain pressure on Max and Al to keep up their machines in top working order. Now, what happens next is that there's more competitive pinball. So, for a few years, there was maybe a couple of years. The only thing that was going on There's a little bit of overlap with the Amsterdam League and the Team League. That overlapped for like maybe a year, and then it was just the Team League for a couple of years, and then South Slope, started their own thing. So modeled after the Team League, in 2014, the South Slope League was formed. This hyper-local league would fill the summer and winter gaps when pinball in New York City was on hiatus and satisfy the appetite for pinball in what had quickly become the most densely populated pinball neighborhood in the city. While several people have helped manage the South Slope League since its inception, its success turned upward when our beloved Kate Martin took over the helm. Kate is so dedicated to pinball and organizing the league and tournaments alike that apparently she keeps a notebook with pages of notes on organizing competitions. Is that correct, Kate? Did I state that properly? Yeah, she takes it seriously. Look, she's making trophies and putting medals around people's heads and smiles on people's faces. Yeah, we love that. We love that. After yay. After captaining the Pin Babes in the Pinball New York City League for several seasons and regularly attending tournaments at Modern Pinball and around the country, Anna Wolk founded the New York City chapter of Bells and Chimes. With the express mission of creating a welcoming space for women to embrace pinball, Bells and Chimes quickly became a critical component in the growth of the New York City pinball community. With the help of Jade Ang, Bells and Chimes launched their first tournament in 2016 with 24 participants. Since then, Kate, over here, same Kate Martin, Jess Warren have also joined the helm, and as a group, they've grown to become an essential force in the New York City pinball community. It's like I think that they're largely overlooked, but I think like absolutely critical, because the Bells and Chimes are just drawing in a population of people that are normally not drawn to competitive pinball. That's not 100% true, but they've definitely. I feel their impact all the time.
Women are the fastest growing demographic in pinball players, more than youth, more than anything else. It's just like women.
Women are the fastest growing demographic. So yeah, see, they know what they're doing, and no doubt Bells and Chimes, New York and San Francisco and all the other chapters are a big reason for that. No doubt. Okay, good old Greg Poverelli's Sunshine League. This is the point where we hope he doesn't walk in and see this photo. Okay, so Greg Poverelli's older brother Chris once told me that Greg had an obsessive personality. Perhaps this is the reason he is so fixated on pinball today. Greg joined his brother's pinball team early in the pinball New York City history, and it didn't take long before he became a very familiar face. Pantino was part of that team.
Pantino's fault.
It was
Well,
All his fault.
because he never played pinball before. He came to my house, he played high speed, and he was hooked pretty much instantly.
Oh, I don't know this story.
Yeah, not many people do. Is there a tape of it?
So wait. So Pantino, so Poverelli comes to your place to play your high speed.
Brother is Mike's best friend from childhood?
Yeah, it was for a while. We don't
You
see
met
each
Greg
other.
and now you don't want to be associated.
But I'm not inaccurate. I mean, we know Greg. He does have a bit of an obsessive personality, right? So look at that. You got to bring that. Oh.
Hey, it's my birthday. Tequila shots for everybody.
All right. Do you want to repeat that? Well, I don't know.
Not much to tell other than that. I mean, he literally came over and was like, "What is this?" He's like, "No, it's high speed." We played it a bunch. He was like, "Wow, that's really fun." And then I think we probably rolled over to Satellite at the time, and then we started playing pinball like every other second. And,
Do you know what?
That's why he's not in this room.
That's why because he's playing pinball. Yeah. You know what I remember, Mike?
Coming at 8:01.
Yeah. Perfect. You know what I remember, Mike? I remember you bitching about his gameplay when he was on your team in the early days. Like he's just like, Greg trained or whatever and crapped out. Like that's what I remember. But not so anymore, Like he's one of the best, all right? So he gets because of Mike's influence, he gets introduced to pinball, and it doesn't take long before he becomes a very familiar face in the competitive pinball scene, traveling around the world to take part in competitions. In 2016, he started a weekly Wednesday night league at Sunshine Laundromat. Sunshine's expansive high-end collection and the fact that Greg submitted results to the IFPA meant that he attracted the best players from throughout the tri-state area. Okay. Next up are these guys. This is more of a recent thing going on. In 2017, Levy Naiman, Paul Karras, Austin Smith, and Tim Sexton embarked on a mission to elevate New York City's status in the global pinball community even higher. Together, they envisioned an annual tournament not only worthy of its host city, but also one where the city became part of the attraction for its participants. In 2018, the New York City Pinball Championship was born. As all four have extensive pinball tournament experience, they are on a mission to create a world-class event that rivals the best in the world. Okay, today is an interesting, we're in an interesting time because we're just emerged from the pandemic, and the boat has been rocked a little bit, but we're I don't think I realized it until I embarked on this journey to put together this presentation that we're doing pretty well. It's like we're doing pretty well, and we'll touch on that. Okay, so as New York City continues to emerge from the darkest days of the pandemic, it is readily apparent that pinball continues to thrive in this great metropolis. The community has suffered some heavy losses recently, including Modern Pinball, Sunshine Laundromat, perhaps not permanently, but hasn't been open for a little while, and most tragically, our beloved pinaholic, Alan Cihak. However, the New York City pinball community is strong and resilient, and despite the darkness of the long pandemic shutdown, it now seems stronger than ever. Where once there was 1 or 2 nights a week of organized competition, today there are 6 or 7. New bars are embracing pinball for the first time, and many established locations are increasing their machine count as they've come to recognize the value of a stronger pinball presence. New, smaller operators have stepped in to fill the void left from Al's passing and to place machines in neighborhoods which had been completely ignored until recently. The efforts on the ground, combined with pinball's rising global status and popular culture, have helped nurture and sustain a strong community. Okay. I spent a few hours on the phone interviewing many people in preparation for this presentation. Now, I'm not going to lie, given all that I'm currently managing in my life, although it may not seem it now, right? But putting together this talk caused me a great deal of stress. However, when I was on the phone with the likes of Kate or Jade or these guys over there, Ed and Steve, and when I was on the phone and we were just talking about pinball, like there was no stress, it was pure joy to be listening to everyone's stories and geeking out on the game, and it was relief from all the other shit that's going on in my life, and it made me realize what I believe to be the key ingredient for not just New York City's resurgence, but just the kind of global picture here. And that is community. I think that the true joy of this game is in that we can share it with other people, and that we've got friends within this hobby. Be it competitive friend, you're in the competitive arena, or you're an operator and you just like operating, or you're a collector, or you just like fixing and repairing stuff. Like, the community is vast, and there's lots of great opportunity there. And this sentiment was shared repeatedly while I was doing my research. When Steve Penza pestered John at Jack Bar to teach him a few things about maintaining machines, John ultimately did so, and John's mentorship led Steve to become one of the city's newest operators. Ed Horrigan, another new operator, spoke of how spending time with his teammates at their regular Monday night pinball New York City matches has helped ground him while splitting time between the city and Vermont. He also spoke directly of the community, noting how magically generous and dedicated people are. Jade spoke of how she is attracted to the social aspect of competitive pinball. My pinball team is made up of people from all walks of life, and friendships have been made that would have been impossible if not for our shared love of the game. That's Sunshine, where good old Alberto used to bartend. As humans, we all need community, and I believe that it's this need, more than any other force, that is driving the growth in pinball in New York City and beyond. I mean that sincerely. And when you look around the world and the world we live in right now, and you think about what other people are latching on to, with regard to community, and their need for community, and the negativity that may draw, I am so thankful for pinball and the pinball community as a whole. And oh, look at that! See, we all celebrated my birthday one year at one of the parties, and this is a nice photo. This is Lisa's tournament over at Solid State, and this is people from all over the place. I think Bowen Kearns is here. Obviously Kate's here. Levy, people that never step into my bar. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, they're here for Lisa. It's her birthday and it's a celebration of her, and we miss her, and that's pinball. Now, if you have any questions, that will conclude my presentation. I hope that was okay. I didn't do that many ums and ahs, did I?
No. So I just want to say I hope that you can find a place for Central Massachusetts as your vacation spot once a year. We welcome all the New York City people to come up here
Oh yeah.
and have this big pinball event, this comprehensive event.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, this is great. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to be here. I'm like me personally, Dave, and I'm a bit of an outlier. I do my thing, and I know people, and I'm excited to know them. But like, no, it's not. It's not. I don't. It's not anything in particular. It's just I don't know. My life is complicated. So like part of the reason I run I still run the Pinball New York City League. I'm 52 years old, and I go play pinball once a week. It's just because I need an excuse to get the hell out of the house and hang out with people that I would normally not see. But I don't have room in my life for 6 nights a week of competition, or to this is it's a 2.5 hour drive, which is fine, but I envy the people that can travel and do stuff. But even still, my buddy Philippe and I will troubleshoot machines at Solid State together, and it's awesome. It's just like oh, well, we've got this in common. We're gonna try to figure out what the hell's wrong with this machine and try to solve the problem. And I love that, and that's part of the community.
Questions, comments? Come on up here if you want to get your.
Oh, we got a mic. We got a roaming mic. Mike, you got the roaming mic and you're not talking about
I hate talking in a mic. I talk loud, so I don't.
We're recording it.
Don't be difficult.
How's that? I kind of feel that there's almost too much pinball in New York right now, as far as like Monday night there's something, Tuesday night, and I find that the numbers have kind of, I don't know if they've plateaued, but I feel like there's definitely too many nights available, and now you see less people on Monday night, you see less people on Tuesday. Is it too much?
My personal view of it is that it depends on what people are. It depends on what people are like playing pinball for. Because if you're Greg, you want to do every tournament that you can that's IFPA stuff. But like for me, I'm like I do the league to hang out with my buddies and drink and have a reason to go out that isn't, I don't know, vexing. And like if you care more about your IFPA rating versus just having fun and dollar games and whatever, and you find there's a lot of crossover, but there's a huge split of people that are like, I couldn't give a single word I shouldn't say like about, and I'm somewhere in the middle. Rankings are fine, but also like dollar games are better.
Well, while you're here, you could
Oh,
compare
just
notes.
betting dollars with your friends. Oh yeah. I was like, do I have to explain like the dollar part or the game part?
Kate, you could compare notes with the New England Pinball League people, many of whom are right across the hall there, because
I know not of really how the New England Pinball League runs.
it's very geographically dispersed.
So I'm in the Chicago Pinball, one of the Chicago Land Pinball Leagues. That's, people as far south as Plainfield, Illinois, and people as far north as McCollum Lake, Illinois, 2-hour drives. And it's all once a month out of people's houses, and it's like more of a party league than anything else. And almost everyone that hosts has a pool, so that part's really cool. But like that, I think, is probably a similar idea. Is like we're competitive, we show up, we play, we do well or we don't. You get fed, you have drinks, you do but I do that because it's like people I'm friends with that want to play pinball. Oh, look, there's a White Claw, and maybe I get to swim in a pool afterwards. Like at that, and I go to a lot of tournaments. I travel probably the most of anyone in this room, and I just do it because I'm like.
Well, I mean that said, Kate, and I think that you're on point with a lot of things, but I will say that I have had the same thought that Mike has had. Like I am fearful. I have seen. It's not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, but I think in the end, there were a lot of players that would play, once a week, and then Pinball NYC League. Then they play at Greg's tournament on Wednesdays, and like that would be the end of it, right? And now life doesn't really allow them to do that, and the other 3 tournaments, and so then now it's a bit more. They're spreading out and they're picking and choosing. I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, right? Like I think it's. But what has to continue to happen is that new people have to be brought back. Keep bringing in. If we're not bringing people in, eventually people are going to peter out. Life doesn't allow for it all the time, right? A lot of people that were in the league in the early days are not in the league now because they have kids, they got married. It's like they just don't have the opportunity to do that level of social thing.
Same with the New England League.
Sure, it is.
What we saw was Monday night specifically players who were like, I have kids now, I can't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
And I'll also say the Monday night thing is that 2 teams have won it most of the times ever, Michael, and people get a little defeated, being like, okay, so we're just gonna lose to the terrorists or lose to the mutants.
Yeah, that's yeah. I mean, whatever. Let's not get into that because that's a whole can of worms. But okay, that's fine. I don't disagree with you. I definitely don't disagree with you. The other concern I have, my Kate.
I'm queued up on the game. I got 5. You're all right. That's cool. Maybe.
As are you. The only other thing I would say is that I was a little bit concerned about the situation when Al passed away, because I was in an exceptional circumstances, because his life allowed him to be a full-time operator, and that's not really a thing anymore, right? Like, I mean, in New York City, to be a full-time operator and live in New York City, I don't know. I mean, maybe if you're operating slot machines, you can do it. I don't know how you make that kind of money and sustain life. So when Al passed away, his reach was so broad, it was frightening to think like, okay, well, what the hell's going to happen now? But what I'm seeing now is smaller operators. It was, at one point, like I talked about this, right? It was kind of like a cartel. It was either Max or Al, right? They had their neighborhoods, and they rarely kind of crossed over. And it was like, okay, Max has got this part of town, and Al's got this part of town, and all that. But now it's like smaller operators, lower workload, more attention being spent on the machines, and it's a more kind of a realistic thing with regard to lifestyles, because again, Al had an exceptional lifestyle that allowed him to be an operator, but full time. But that's not true for most people. I and incredibly difficult in the city. So, but I'm encouraged, like the likes of Steve and Ed here, take it on new locations and other locations that had been, just got machines ripped out of their bars because Al's family doesn't want to deal with pinball, and whatever, that's their business. I don't care, like it's fine. But literally getting phone calls saying, like, yeah, tomorrow they're coming to pick up all their machines, and there's no saying it. They're just gone. And so people stepped up, and that's encouraging. So, and I didn't even know that until recently.
And we just met here today.
That's right. The two of you. Get out of here. Nah, that's not true. Really? Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, see? I hope you like each other.
Check. Sorry. Quick question. We live in Eastern Canada, and we go to New York City typically once a year. And when we go, a big part of it is trying to find pinball places. So when we finally went back last December, after the pandemic, a couple of places we used to go had closed down. Obviously, Modern Pinball, 2 Bits down in the East Village.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if there's any sort of a central resource that we can look at now as far as when we're traveling, other than like going to each place's Facebook page and find out when they're open. If there's, because we went to Jack Bar when we were there in December,
Yeah.
and it was great, but we got there and there was a tournament going on.
Right.
So that means, and it's a weekly tournament, so it didn't make any sense for us to join into that tournament.
Right.
And then so some of the machines are being used, and everybody there was very nice about it. They weren't, they totally said, hey, if we're not using it, go ahead and use
Sure.
it, that sort of thing. Is there any sort of a resource for people visiting New York City
So
that we can go to?
It's a good question. I think there's, you touched on a couple of things. Finding the locations shouldn't be too difficult. Either the pinball map or the Pinball NYC map or website taps in. I happen to like the interface of my website better than Pinball map, but it pretty much works the same. It's the same data. That's location data and machine data and some quality stuff. But you can see things visually. But when things started, when I started doing things again, when things were, I was whatever. I was single. I had freelance. I had way too much time on my hands. I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I thought, okay, this website that I created is going to be everything pinball in the city, and it's completely unsustainable. Like I can't devote all my life to that. So at the beginning and up and for a long time, events and other people's events would get posted on the website, and you would get to see that. But that's kind of fallen away. And so now things go on in the city pretty regularly, and I'm like, really? No one told me that. I didn't know that was going on, And so it is not decentralized. However, I have recently started to visit this problem and in an effort to try to solve it, because it's definitely solvable. I don't know what the exact solution is going to be. I think everyone's kind of doing their own things. There's Bells and Chimes has got a Facebook page. They're doing one thing. Greg's running a tournament on Wednesday nights, and Gabe's running a tournament on Thursdays. I run a league 2 nights a week, and there's all this location data and all this, and it's kind of silly. It really should be one place. So the short answer is no, but maybe next year. Come back, keep an eye out. We'll if such a thing gets manifests itself, it will definitely be posted on the Pinball NYC site. Like at least that much I'll do. Even if it's not the source of the information. I don't really care. It's not really like this isn't an ego thing. It's just like but it's a problem that needs to be solved. So we're gonna try to get heads together and figure that out. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, both. But you present it in a way that I hadn't really thought of, which is to say that it's event data attached to location. So you're searching a location and then you see the event, which is different than looking for events. And so that's actually, it's a nuanced difference, but it's an important difference because if you're not looking at a list of events, you may otherwise not know that Jack Bar had an event that night, right? So that's kind of that's an interesting problem. I like that. So we'll give it some thought. Yeah, definitely.
That goes back to the early days of RGP. People would ask that exact query. I am going to name of city on date. Where are the good places to play pinball?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not necessarily wanting to get into a tournament or anything, but just this is the night I'm going to have free. What can I do? And that was semi-solved just by it being a forum. So people could answer back. So that might be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the big problem is that there's too many solutions right now, and so
right.
therefore that doesn't really amount to much, because it's
So
everyone's doing right. So RGB was like, okay, that was it, right, and that made sense. But now it's everyone's just sort of doing their own thing. If you the next time you go, you should just bar hop in South Slope. That's like there's like I don't know 9 bars within walking distance, and South Slope is in Brooklyn. It's Fifth Avenue and 9th Street. And if you look at the map, if you zoom in on the map in this part of Brooklyn, there's just a bunch of red dots because the red dots are showing you that there's just a concentration of pinball. I mean, it's a little bit of a trek from Manhattan, but whatever. You're from Canada. You could take a trek. You're good.
We used to travel.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. Anything else?
Anyone want to say anything about Al?
Let's go. Right. So we should leave me behind and start talking about Al. I'm going to tell you a story about Al. I'm going to get things started because Al and I had an interesting relationship because we were friends, but not in the let's go and hang out kind of thing. We were friends because of the shared community, and early on, because I had started this league, and and it was giving his machines all this love. He loved me in return, right? And one day, I have this. I played at a bar. I still do, called the Kettle of Fish in the West Village, and they had one pinball machine at the Kettle of Fish. And I said to, and it was always wonky. There was always something going on. And I don't really know how to deal with pinball at the time. And it turns out the operator owned one pinball machine, and it was at the Kettle of Fish. So they didn't know how to deal with pinball problems. And so I asked Al. I said, Al, hey, man, can you help us out? And big-hearted Al, says yes. And I was thinking to myself that this might lead him to take over the location. But when I don't know, he probably talked to like Eddie Kramer or somebody, I don't know who he talked to, but somewhere between him saying yes and showing up at the Kettle of Fish that afternoon, someone had basically told him, what the fuck are you doing? You're gonna help another operator out? Don't help another operator out. What good is that? You're not gonna do that. So Al comes in and he's kind of pissy, but being the nice guy that he is, he helps out. So he's helping out, and then he's bitching about helping out, and then he's helping out, and he's giving this young guy all this advice. He's like, "Oh, you got to do this." Because I can't believe I'm doing this. What am I doing here? Like the owner of the bar had to walk away because he was getting so upset with Al. And I'm like, Al, listen, always keep the manual and the tools in the glove box. And what am I doing here? Why am I here? Like this isn't I don't know what I'm doing. But Al was fighting demons at the same time as being the nice guy that he was, and he helped out. And once we still play pinball there, so it was kind of a fun afternoon. And I remember him saying to me one day, we all know he had MS, and he always struggled for as long as I've known him, but he was doing all right at the time, and he bitched about his MS and the struggle he was going through, and I just turned to him. I said, you're doing all right, And he said, yeah, I'm doing all right, and because that I recognized that at the time, going out and being physical with pinball machines was only helping him, You know, as much as it was difficult for him, it was only helping him. Because the opposite of that is you sit on your ass and you do nothing, and you degrade a lot faster. So I wasn't going to let him, you know, throw MS in my face because he's out fixing pinball machines. I'm like, no, you're doing fine. You'll be all right. You know, and you know, like I've got plenty of physical complaints, and you know, but whatever, I'll be all right. Anyway, that's my Al story. Who's next? I want an Al story. Come on, Pantino, you got an Al story.
I got a big one, but not yet. No pressure, because then we'll never do that. No, I mean, I mean, without Al, frankly, I mean, there would not really be much of a pinball scene, I think, in New York, especially like, what was it, like 2010 when he kind of really started to push through?
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't even know, I mean, I remember going into Satellite Lounge one time, like one night late, and I had no idea about competitive pinball at all. I didn't even know it existed. I was actually with Pavarelli's brother, Little Chris, and the other Little Chris, because you're also, that's another story. But yeah, I went there, like, we played some pinball, and then all of a sudden Francesco was there, and he was like, looming a little closer to me than I'd like him to. He's like, you come tomorrow, you good player. You play tournament tomorrow? I'm like, what is this guy talking about? Tournament? There's pinball tournaments? And I went the next day, and I met all these amazing people, Al, and Dahlia, and Eddie, and Steve Bowden, Coy, like everyone seemed to be at that tournament. That really, there's a great picture of that tournament in front of Satellite Lounge when I think there was about maybe 40 of us there. But Al really brought that. It was really a big part of bringing all those people together. And fast forward till now, it's 12 years later, it feels like a blink. And it went from a couple of places to now it's like I could walk out of my house and there's a million places to play pinball. And you're bringing the league to all the places that Al has machines in. It just turned into this great community. And now everyone, a lot of people in this room over here just love each other. And it's really, and there's Lindsay. Yeah.
Welcome. I will say that I glossed over Satellite Lounge, but you're right. I mean, those were all Al's machines, and like it was a big deal because at the time, like to have a bar in New York City with like more than two. I mean, really nobody had any more than two. No shit. All right. Al's machines. Yeah.
There, like, every time I went there, I think 9 out of 10 times that I was at Satellite Lounge, Al was there. I don't think he wasn't ever working on machines. Really. He wasn't really working on machines most of the time, but
he was there all the
always
time.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really-
I'm a former operator, and I can say that's a good operator who goes to their location more than like the collection day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was great meeting him. That was part of, my entry into the whole scene and whatever, was meeting Al in 2009, I think, before Satellite at Fratelli's.
Oh,
Brick Oven
Fratelli's.
Pizza. Were you there?
No,
I think
Fratelli's.
I remember you from that.
I played it for Telly's tournament. But
Yeah.
That was after Satellite Lounge.
It might have been a little bit.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's a little bit
Yeah,
after.
maybe.
Because I think the end of 2010 was when that satellite tournament happened. I think shortly after then, the Telly's.
I was smart because he sought places that would take a lot of machines. He had a lot of machines, and so like Creek and K became one of those places. He threw like 8 machines there. Satellite Lounge was like, I think peaked at like 7, maybe 8, and then and then Fratelli's didn't work out, but
There were signs on the pinball machines that said no pizza, no pinball.
yeah,
If you didn't buy a pizza,
yeah,
you were not allowed to play pinball.
yeah. They were not.
Forced it too. They would go like, hey, and the pizza kind of sucked, so it wasn't really.
Yeah, they didn't have a good. Yeah, they didn't have a good relationship with pinball.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, I played Al. I don't know. There's got to be a name for this game. It was me, Al, and Ed Rojas in Fratelli's, and we would we would put down, we'd ante up $1 at the beginning of a game, and then after every ball, you could either fold and walk away from that $1, or you can throw another $1 in and play the next ball. Yeah, whatever the hell it is, whatever it's called, but it's my favorite form of pinball gambling, and that is and that was with Al. That was with Al.
Other Al stories, anybody?
I want to say that Al, along with Dahlia and Eddie, really, while the Orange County pinball scene in New York was happening, they brought a lot of like, Al's influence is felt there. I mean, Brian Estes worked with Al, Mike Ford, and just,
Al's reach was wide.
yeah, Al had a big reach. He would come by, his machines were in Orange County Pinball, and we all loved him. And, he would come to, Keeler's parties and stuff like that. And, he was known even upstate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He came to Pinball Expo in Chicago.
Yeah.
So he's certainly known.
And I want to mention Dahlia, too, because
Oh,
Dahlia was a
Dahlia.
big part of that, too.
Dahlia was awesome. Awesome. Yeah. She,
Al have machines in Texas?
Yes, don't say that out loud. His brother might hear and go text.
yeah. Well. Yeah, I don't think any one person knows how many machines Al had. Like I don't think Al ever knew. Yeah, like that's no, like I mean, if you think about it, like when he's telling that story in 2015 at Expo, he can't even keep track. It's like, oh yeah, I got these two, and then like, I must have picked up a few others, and I did 11 here, and I did 5 here, and this is probably over a span of like, I don't know, 3 weeks or something. It was just he was just buying shit up, and like, and honestly too, like this is part of one of the things that I was thinking about as well, like with Al, and I think Eggs, in that boat too, like if you're trying to be an operator in this day and age, and like if that's your business, and you're spending $9,000 on a machine, right? $9,000 a machine. I'm not sure you're a very good business person, but that's not what, like, Al was not that. Al wasn't doing it for that. I mean, Al appreciated the money, and it kept it saying. Al just loved pinball. Like, it was just passion above anything else, and like I own a bar that's still struggling to come out of the pandemic, but that didn't stop me from dropping $9,000 on a pinball machine 2 weeks ago. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but I'm just like, I have to have that damn machine, and I have to share it with people, like that's not that damn Godzilla.
It's worth it, yeah.
I am happy with it, so it's great. But yeah, no, like he'd get every damn LE. Like he got like Avengers LE. Nobody likes that game, and it's green, and the bar hated it because it was green, and like take that, Zablowski's had it first, and they threw the machine out, and
But without Al, you'd never have LEs on location.
you'd never have LEs on location. No, absolutely.
Al could spend fucking $15,000 on a Batman 66, and the next day on Facebook he posts about how he had a big buck hunter at Kettle of Fish. You should go play. This is a great game.
Right. he's
A big buck hunter.
yeah, no.
I mean, Al had such an influence. He was
Oh, you're gonna get video of that wheel that over. Mike, wheel that over. That's gotta be wheeled over. Yeah, that's a story, Mike. You gotta put that on. Get that on.
He was art on a zombie movie.
Yeah.
Didn't get made, I think.
For what?
J-Pop had a machine, Retro Zombie.
Yeah, it was
Eddie Kramer.
This is way before Deep Root. This is way before Deep Root.
This was his company that he was trying to start up.
Right.
Had Eddie Kramer and Al and the artwork. They were going to be zombies in the machine. Like, you have their characters right there. And it was real, I
Yeah.
I think that artwork was supposed to be like right above the left slingshot, somewhere in that part. Or the outline, one of them two. Eddie was the other one. And,
You got to keep an eye on that thing, man. I'm going to steal it. That looks
I have to
fantastic.
go back to Joe at Pin Graphics right after we leave here.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
But that's how much of a reach he had.
Oh, yeah.
Putting him in a game.
Right, yeah. J-Pop will put him in the game, and we think, we don't know, we think that's the penmanship of Zombie Yeti. Yeah. Because he did the artwork for Magic Girl, and in pre-Stern days, and he was, Papa Duke was working, he was whatever.
I think Al's family now has like the original sketch of that. And I know Eddie Kramer has the original sketch of the one that was of him. But I guess it didn't go.
I want a copy.
Yeah, everybody does.
Yeah.
He's gonna, apparently, Joe at Pin Graphics says he's gonna make some of those because people have expressed interest in that. I want one.
Yeah, keep me posted. I want one. Yeah, and let's not tell Zombie Yeti about this, or Papa Duke.
No, erase that.
Yeah, that's it.
Zombie Yeti still wants to get paid for that artwork.
Probably right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm glad we didn't forget about our zombie Al. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
All right, well, thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
This-
Dave.
Good send-off for Al, and good update on America's largest metropolis.